Now, this is my Keilwerth Shadow that I've had as a high schooler and college saxophone player. I was able to get into Berklee College of Music playing this saxophone. This is a professional grade horn with nickel plating. You can tell that the bell is larger than most other saxophones, and I found this saxophone to be a really beautiful horn. It has beautiful engravings all around the horn. This saxophone helped me achieve a really great tone quality that many people really enjoyed and found was a unique sound that not many other saxophone players had. I think the only limitations with this saxophone is that the lacquer on this saxophone is a little bit thicker, and that may restrain the sound, especially when you're trying to compete with other saxophone players who play extremely loudly. This is the pitfall of this professional horn. However, I really didn't notice that until I was older, when there were some other saxophone players who just really could just blare through their horns so that anybody else really wouldn't be heard. I would say that would be a consideration if you're getting a horn such as this, but it's really not necessary. You can achieve a nice tone and character with this saxophone that is worth it otherwise, but I think it's important to be aware of that limitation at some point that you may experience, especially if you're trying to compete with other saxophone players. But for the most part, I would say that you wouldn't have to worry about the loudness of this horn. That's something I don't think you should worry about unless you are a competitive saxophone player who needs to be playing over others. Here's the bell. You can see Julius Keilwerth. SX90R is the model. And in fact, there are other SX90Rs that aren't in nickel plating and have a normal brass look to it. Here you can see that it says Shadow and all of the engravings around it, sort of like the saxophone has its own tattoo. Now, when it comes to saxophones, there's only a few brands that stand out as industry leaders. That's going to be Keilwerth, Yanagasawa, Selmer, and Yamaha. These are all well known by jazz musicians for their high quality instruments, and I would consider Keilwerth to be one of them. Now, I've been playing this saxophone for about 20 years now, and I've always loved it. It really has set me apart with the distinct Keilwerth sound that I think a lot of other players don't have the luxury of. Outside of the quality tones and characteristics you're going to get with this saxophone, the attention to detail in the engravings is absolutely second to none. When you look at this sax, you can tell that it was crafted with care and precision. The initials JK for Julius Keilwerth are cleverly and elegantly engraved as one letter, as you can see here. One consideration to be made if you're thinking about getting a saxophone of this color is that the pads are black in color. So whenever you get something repaired or updated, you'll have to specially request that the pads remain the same color as they were originally. It's not uncommon to find a nickel-plated saxophone that has orange pads instead of the matching black pads. So I would specially request to have black pads. It's cosmetic only, but I think it really helps the overall character of the saxophone. Instead of white pearls, you'll see that the saxophone has black pearls to match the nickel plating. Even though there's some scratching here on the horn, I would consider the finish to be robust, and you wouldn't have to worry about scratching because this happened over a 20-year period. And that's not a lot for over 20 years of consistent use. This horn definitely draws attention from the design, so you'll not be disappointed if you get a nickel-plated horn that looks shiny. Often I will have musicians stop all focus just to check out the silver-plated bell, the pearl keys, and the adjustable palm keys, and other design details not found on other woodwinds. The reason why I chose this saxophone is because it was an upgraded from my previous saxophone, which was desperately needed. As I described, it was the Conn that I reviewed recently in another video. I owned that Conn saxophone. After a certain point in practicing, I was limited in the way that the horn functioned. So this finally got me out of that rut. With that other saxophone, there simply was not enough practicing I could do to overcome some of the performance issues as a beginner saxophone player. That's why it was so important for me to not only upgrade, but upgrade to a quality saxophone. Another reason why I purchased this saxophone is because at the time of playing the Keilwerth, some of the most extreme ranges of the saxophone seemed effortless, even all the way down to low B flat and high F sharp. And by the way, there is a high F sharp key. Even today, the Keilwerth Shadow holds up well against competitive models from other brands like Yanagisawa and Yamaha. This has truly been a timeless piece of craftsmanship that any saxophonist would be proud to own. This alto sax is a workhouse instrument. It's durable, has a great tone quality, and is just overall a joy to play. At the end of the day, I would recommend a Keilwerth saxophone, but for professional use, I would just note, however, that you're not going to be able to project as loud as some of the other competitive saxophone players. But if you're not necessarily in a competitive environment, then I think this is a great saxophone to generate a beautiful tone and a character that's irreplaceable and unlike any other. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Keilwerth Shadow, the SX90R. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.